What's up, Facebook family, YouTube subbies? What's up? Welcome to Sgt Dorsey Speaks live at 5 p.m. on West Coast, 8 p.m. on the East Coast. And tonight is just me all by my lonesome. So let me just do a couple of things. What's up, Lonnie? Welcome, welcome. Thank you for being the first one through the door. I just need to set this up on my Facebook page, family. So give me a second as I do that, making it public so you guys can share it. Please feel free to do that. Create a watch party if you want to. Tonight, what I'm going to be talking about is the ambush over the weekend on the LA County Sheriff's Department deputies, as well as the settlement, $12 million civil settlement involving the family of Breonna Taylor, the young woman in Louisville, Kentucky, who was killed in that no-knock warrant service. And so, hey, young elder truth seeker, what's up? So I'm going to be multitasking. You guys already know the newcomers. If I say some stuff that ruffles your feathers, please try and not internalize it. Your agreement is not required. I'm just telling you what I know based on my 20 years as a retired Los Angeles Police Department patrol sergeant and officer. So, hey, DL Bell, what's up in Sacramento? Hope you guys are doing well. And to my SoCal family, I hope everybody is managing okay with all of the fires that are around us. I am not really close to any one particular fire, but you know, there are so many burning. I heard there's like 28 majors that they're reporting and much more than that in the state of California from north to south. And so I'm kind of sandwiched in between a couple of big ones. So air quality is bad, and ooh-wee. I have not been out much this week, but I did go out today for a little bit. I met with the, I'm going to call him my photo fairy, my photographer fairy. And we did a little photo shoot today, and I am excited to see what that looks like when we're all said and done. So once we get those copies, I will be sure to share them with you, and we'll be using them probably for some promotional stuff as well going forward. So so much to talk about. For those of you who are new, welcome. I have a podcast that plays weekly on all of the podcast platforms. So wherever it is you subscribe and listen to your podcast, be sure to subscribe and follow Sgt Dorsey Speaks on my podcast. Also on my social media platforms, you can follow me on Instagram, sgtcheryldorsey, and on Twitter, sgtcheryldorsey. Hey, lady first, what did you say? Come here to Louisville and get this chief job. Look, I don't know why y'all trying to kill me. I'm happy, you know, fat, dumb, and happy. That's what we used to say on the police department. I'm fat, dumb, and happy over here. So don't be upsetting my apple cart. I'm doing the best that I can do and all that I can do from right here. So leave me be. Leave me be. Hey, Terry, what's up? Love you too. Harold, you're in Baltimore, and y'all need a good commissioner. Okay, well, good luck with that, sir. I can't help you. So let's see. Where do I start? Why don't I start with the thing that is rubbing me raw the most? The $12 million settlement for the family of Breonna Taylor. Now, let me say this, be clear, because you know some of you guys only hear what you want to hear. So let me be clear. Let me look in your eye and tell you that I would never, ever try to tell a family member how to grieve or what's important to them. And certainly I don't think, even if they have a dollar amount, I would never put one on a loved one. There's not a dollar amount I can utter that would be okay and make up for any one of my cubs. And so while I always think families deserve to be compensated, I don't want to say made whole, because you can't be made whole when you lose a loved one, but certainly they should get something, right? They should get something. And so, you know, $12 million. Now the family's not going to get 12 million. You understand that, of course. Um, you know, attorneys get a third. And so let's just start there. Let's just start with the attorneys, because I was in the barbershop a couple of weeks ago, and I need, what would you say on the Need You Alive? Okay, Mike Kesey, I hope I'm saying your name right, sir. I'm glad you're here. Bob, yeah, I'm glad you're here. KP from KC5, welcome, welcome. Laura, hello. Okay, so let me get to the money thing. So I think the way it goes is the attorneys get a third. Now, I was in the barbershop a couple of weeks ago. Those of you who know that I moonlight on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m., I was simulcasting the barbershop conversations on my YouTube channel, but it was technical issues, and sometimes you guys could not maybe hear other guests if the barbershop had some other guests beside me and the host on, and so you just see me sitting there looking and listening as the other guest is talking, but you don't know what they're saying. And then there were problems with buffering and all of that, so I decided that I was just going to go and go to the barbershop. So for those of you who ever want to stick your head in and hear what's going on over there, Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, in the barbershop on YouTube, Barbershop Conversations. So you can find me there on Wednesday nights, moonlighting. My second job, my off-duty job. That's what we call other gigs we do on the police department, right? So we started talking a little bit about this whole Breonna Taylor, the sheriff's department, and we were talking about I was talking about the fact that I was in the barbershop a few weeks ago with the attorney who was actually representing the family of Breonna Taylor's mother, more specifically. It's a female attorney, and I can't say her name, but she's representing the family. And what she said when she was in the barbershop is that she couldn't get any traction. And we know this to be true because we hadn't heard anything about that Breonna Taylor no-knock warrant until very recently. Hey, James, love you too. And oh, Mike Keys. Okay, got you, Mike Keys. Thanks for that visual. I appreciate that. Marcellus, we're going to talk about LASD's version of the Kizzy deadly shooting as well. Now, female attorney representing the mother of Breonna Taylor couldn't get any traction. She's not well known, and I think she kind of prefers to be behind the scenes. And so she reached out to Ben Crump, who is well known, and said, "Hey, I need your help. Can you come on over here and, do what you do? Get cameras, get folks' attention, and talk about this." And so he agreed to do that. Now, listen, I don't know. I'm not all in, their business like that, but I kind of feel like that character from In Living Color, like what was her name, Miss Rodriguez or Miss Bonita, I'm about to say some stuff, but y'all didn't hear it from me. And so what happened was that she asked Ben Crump to help her out and get some attention. And so he came in and did that. Now, I don't know if when he comes in and does that all over the world, because every time there's a major, what looks like a major coin to be had, he shows up, and you got to be licensed in every state if you're going to practice in every state, and he's not. So what happens is that I'm believing that he hooks up with people in that state, Louisville, Kentucky, and uses the license of the attorney in Louisville, Kentucky to kind of work under, if you will, right? And so I'm just wondering, I don't know, and I don't need to know, but I'm just wondering, because that's what I do. I wonder, as a supervisor, detective, investigator, I wonder, I ask questions. And so I don't know if he gets a portion of this attorney's fees, or does he and the sister girl who's actually representing the mother, do they split that 1/3? Or does she get a third, he get a third, and then mom gets what's next? And then, of course, there's a whole thing about, you got to pay taxes on it, I think. And so, now 12 million to the mom is probably down somewhere around 6 or 7. So I hope, she has a good financial planner. And I hope that, there aren't a whole bunch of people now who be like, "Oh, hey, sis, remember me?" I hope she'll be okay. But having said that, I was watching the news, and what I saw was Ben Crump talking about this civil settlement. And I heard, what I like to call double speak, code talk, stuff that sounds amazing when you hear it. But then when if you listen with a trained ear like I have, you understand that what you heard wasn't really what you heard. And so I had to just kind of back up because I was TiVoing it at the time so I could make sure that I had my facts straight when I came to you with my messy coat on, my petticoat, and that I had it right. And so what Ben Crump said on MSNBC with Joy Reid a couple of days ago was that this is sweeping police reform. This is the largest civil settlement in the history of civil settlements, I think, in Louisville, Kentucky. Certainly not in the history of civil settlements around the universe, because we know that the family of the white woman who was killed in Minneapolis by black police officer, Somali police officer Mohammed Noor, we know that family got 20 million. So there's that. There's that. So Crump said this is, sweeping reform, and there's going to be, this is the blueprint, he said. This is the blueprint for police departments all around the world. And I was like, hold up, Ben, not so quick. Not so quick. Because as I'm listening to him and as I saw what they put up on the screen with regards to the things that were agreed to in this civil suit. And let me just say this, because when he talks about this sweeping reform, what ultimately he kind of had to admit, and I don't think Joy was trying to out him. I just think that, he didn't realize that, he was saying what he was saying, or that somebody like me was sitting there listening, taking notes, right? Like I do, like, what you say, Ben? So I know as a patrol officer, when I go to work, when I did go to work, and I get in my uniform and I walk out the locker room and I check out my patrol car and I get in it, me and my partner, and we go bye-bye for 8 hours and 45 minutes. The things that he calls sweeping reform, that's going to be the blueprint for police departments all around the world, don't mean nothing to me when I'm driving around in my black and white for 8 hours and 45 minutes. So I want to talk a little bit about the sweeping reform that doesn't exist, because this is much like the police reform that we're hearing be talked about on national news with regards to, these presidential candidates and, others, senators, what it is that they want. And while all of this is good, don't get me wrong, I don't say no to anything, but quit acting like this is going to make shit better. Quit acting like this right here is going to stop a Derek Chauvin from sitting on somebody's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Quit acting like this right here is going to stop a Garrett Wolf from shooting you in the back if you happen to catch him lunching and get his taser and run off with it. Quit acting like this is going to prevent a police officer if you riding as a passenger in a Lyft and the driver happens to not have any ID, and then the officer directs his attention to you in the back seat because you look like me. Don't act like this right here, the sweeping reform, is going to stop that officer from pulling your ass out the passenger window and beating it like they did Roderick Walker in Clayton County, Georgia, who, by the way, now is sitting up in jail being charged with assault on a police officer, who, in the midst of all that, we saw the officer, because listen, officers are crafty. And I know that this is a technique that they use, a tactic, quit hitting me, as they're putting in work on you, knowing that you're not hitting them, but they're creating an audio record because they can later say, well, he was hitting me. I was defending myself. I was being attacked. We heard those officers, or at least one of the officers, say, quit biting me, quit biting me. And at the time he said, quit biting me, Roderick's face was smashed down into the pavement. And we know that to be true because when you see him, he looks like damn Quasimodo. His eye is all swollen. His face is all bruised up from being grated across the concrete. So he could not have been biting the man. But nonetheless, the officer was saying, quit biting me, quit biting me. So this reform right here, this promise, because that's what it was something that was promised to Ben Crump in Louisville, Kentucky. Not anything that's mandated, not compelling, not must do, but it was a promise promise, air quote, promise. And it ultimately has to be approved by their city council, which Joy Reid asked him, well, does the city council have to approve this? And he reluctantly said, well, yeah, some of it, but not all of it. So remember, when I get to work and I'm getting in my police car, this is not going to affect me. I have what you guys know I like to say, no fucks to give about this. So let me just tell you what was promised in that $12 million settlement in Louisville, Kentucky. Mandatory review of all search warrants and approval of SWAT matrices. Okay, so before an officer can serve a search warrant on a location, it has to be reviewed and approved. Okay, that should have been happening anyway. That was a problem in Louisville because the officers were judge shopping. In other words, they were looking for a judge who they knew they could just slide some stuff to him real quick under the door in the middle of the night and say, Judge, sign this no-knock warrant. It's good, trust me. And the judge would sign it. And maybe a supervisor in that unit reviewed it or not. So there's going to be some level of review. Okay, so that's a good thing, but it's not sweeping reform. It's something that should have been happening anyway. Now, I don't know if Louisville is backwards, but that should have been happening anyway. Doesn't affect me when I get in my police car and I'm driving around for 8 hours and 45 minutes. The next thing that was promised, this is amazing. Housing credits for officers to live in low-income areas of the city. Okay. If there's some officers, and I see you guys, if there's some officers on here and y'all want to chime in, let me just ask you, because back in the day when I was on LAPD, they did have a little program where they were trying to get officers to live in the city, not necessarily low income areas, but to live in Los Angeles, because most of us did not. And they were offering officers opportunities to buy homes at a pretty good rate. And so some officers did take advantage of that. And I think the most that did were probably single officers, because nobody with a family is going to want to move into a low income area. Let me know, Cola family, if you're on here, would you be willing to move into a low income area because you got housing credits? I don't even want to live in the city of LA. And I didn't live in the city of LA, and I don't think officers have to live in the city where they police in order to be effective. You just need to have some common sense, some empathy, some compassion, some relatability, and give a damn about the people that you took an oath to protect and serve. You don't have to live there, because what I never wanted to happen was to be in the damn produce aisle with my children, my cubs, and have some suspect see me and have issue, have angst, heartburn, because I took them to jail for a thing. Okay, Marcellus, that's right. It was called the Officer Next Door program. Thanks for that. I don't want to be in the grocery store with my cubs and have some suspect see me and be mad because I took him to jail because he had a ticket and he didn't pay it, and now he mad at me because he went to jail. I don't want to live in the city where I work. I would not live in the city where I work. But anyway, that was another promise in this $12 million situation. The next thing that they promised is to have a team. They're going to hire a team of social workers to assist with dispatched runs. I don't even know what that means. Dispatched runs? Are social workers going to go out every time there's a radio call? Because listen, they don't have enough social workers. They don't even have enough damn cops to go out on every radio call. So, sometimes we'd have calls backed up, 3, 4 sitting in the queue, and you just got to wait your turn. They're put out in priority, right? Hot shots. Y'all know what I'm talking about, those of you that are LEO. So now you're going to have social workers, because aren't they overworked and overwhelmed already? Isn't that why there's a problem with Department of Children and Family Services not being able to keep a close eye on kids who are being put in homes and abused and killed or mistreated by their parents? Because there's not enough social workers. So you're going to pull some of them and you're going to put them on dispatched runs. Which dispatched runs are the social workers going on? Are they going to go on the dispatched runs that have to do with 5150s? Because if it's a 5150 and a family member calls and they're at home, you might have the benefit of time to bring in a social worker if someone is having issue with someone in their home. But what about me? Because I've been driving around in my patrol car, and now, it's a little over, 6 hours left in my shift, right? And I see a traffic stop because somebody got a busted tail light and I got to know why. So I stop them. And when I stop them, I don't happen to know that this person is diagnosed schizophrenic or bipolar when I stop them. All I know is they got a busted tail light. And so I stop them and, oh my, they're having a situation. Much like Mubarak Solomon, a mentally ill young man in Connecticut who was behind the wheel of a car and no one knew that he was having mental issues when the police encountered and engaged him and ultimately shot and killed him. And oh, by the way, the family of Mubarak Solomon in Connecticut, who's being represented by Mark Aarons, hey Mark, what's up? Are still waiting for that swift justice that Lil Tink Tink talks about. He wants, in the case of these deputies, he wants swift justice. He wants to know, and don't we all, whenever there's a death, know who's responsible. The family of Mubarak Solomon's not getting that swift justice, but I digressed. So they're going to have social workers respond, but I just stopped somebody on a traffic stop and it's a mental, and there's no social worker for me to call because I can't tell this person who's having an episode, hold up, time out. Let me get my referee shirt from Foot Locker and put it on and have somebody come out and help me help you, right? So, but anyway, that's not a bad thing. Hire your social workers. I just don't know how you're going to use them. And this does not affect me day to day as I drive around in my car. And this is not the blueprint, hey, Davina, for all 18,000 police departments, Ben Crump. I know you think it is, but I'm just here to tell you as a patrol officer, I call bullshit. The next thing that they're going to do is they're going to create, they promise, to create a system to identify officers with red flags. Well, I'll be damned. Isn't there already something like that? We had a list when I was on the LAPD. There were officers who were on that special list. I think it was 44 back in the day when dinosaurs roamed the earth. I think it was 44 officers that were on that special list, the red flag list. And you know what? One of them went on to become what? The president of the Los Angeles Police Protective League, Craig Lawley, Grandpa Craig. Yeah, he was one of those 44 out of control, raging ass maniacs, allegedly, on the LAPD, who now is old and got a hitch in his damn get along. And everybody, well, not everybody, but just a few people seem to have forgotten who he was, who he is. Derek Chauvin was on a list. He had 18 personnel complaints before he was on his way to number 19, but for that person died, George Floyd. Garrett Rolfe, the officer who shot Rayshard Brooks in the back because he took his taser and ran off, he had over a dozen personnel complaints. So he was on a list. There was a red flag list somewhere that he was on. Oh, and the officer who stood sentry for the murder of George Floyd, Officer Tao, the Asian officer, yeah, he too should have been on a list because that department paid $25,000 to a black man who Tao hit in the head with a flashlight and knocked his damn teeth out of his head. So they're going to create a list over in Louisville. Good luck with that, Louisville family, because that doesn't affect me either as I drive around day to day in my patrol car. They're also going to have mandatory body cameras counting 2 officers if there is a currency seizure. So they're going to have at least 2 officers wearing a body camera if they seize money, a lot of money, in some kind of drug service of a search warrant. Okay, well, we'll hope the officers turn their body camera on because, sometimes they forget, or sometimes they put their hand over it, or sometimes they disable it, or sometimes they do record it. And then the police chief, like the one in Rochester's brother man, Chief Singletary, tried to hide it and keep it from the family of Daniel Prude after they lied and said that he had died from a drug overdose. And now we know that he didn't. He was suffocated to death when they put that spit hood on him. And Chief Singletary is, Skinfolk, not to be confused with Kinfolk. So they're going to have body cameras and they're going to have at least 2 available when officers are counting money. Okay, doesn't affect me day to day when I drive around in my patrol car. Not going to discourage or deter me if I see you when I stop you for having a busted tail light or having a freshener hanging from your rearview mirror and I decide to have a fireside chat with you and you're bothered by it, and then I have to pull you out your window and prepare you for a 13th floor booking, cameras for officers counting money does not stop me from doing that thing that I do. The other thing that they promised was encouraging officers to perform at least 2 paid hours a week of community service. Okay, so they're going to encourage officers to perform 2 hours of paid community service, but I promise you, after I work my 8 and whatever little overtime I have to work because I had a late booking, a late arrest, reports that were long and involved, and now I'm working more than my 40 hours. I promise you, I'm not working 2 hours of community service because it's not mandated. You just would like it if I did, and I don't want to. So there's that. Ben, there's that. They're going to increase drug and alcohol testing. Now, listen, that's a good thing. I don't know if their officers have an issue over there in Louisville with drugs and alcohol, but if they do, this would be great. Why not, Ben, ask them to throw in psychological testing so we can find out which officers came on the job with implicit bias or developed it after they got there or changed their way of thinking because of what they see day to day or because of their partners who have tainted their way of thinking, or because they only have 4 days on the job, like little Leon and the other officer involved in the murder of George Floyd, who said, I only have 4 days on the job. I mean, what did you want me to do? I couldn't go against my tenured training officer. Wouldn't it be nice to have psychological testing to know who the wackadoodles are, Ben? I'm just saying. The drug testing, the alcohol testing is all great, but it would have been nice if you could have asked for that too while you were asking for $12 million, Ben. I'm just saying. They also promised that they will overhaul the process for simultaneous search warrants. In other words, when they served the warrant on Breonna Taylor's house, I guess the belief and assumption is, the inference is that they served multiple search warrants on different locations involving this same particular incident, right? The same particular incident. Okay, so you're going to overhaul the process for simultaneous search warrants. How does that, if I may ask, Ben, how does that prevent me, if I'm on one of those simultaneous search warrants, how does that stop me from shooting through the front door 50, 60, 80 times? I'm just wondering, how does that stop me? If you're overhauling the process for multiple search warrants, does that discourage me from shooting through a door and I don't know what's on the other side? I'm just asking. They also promised mandatory EMS paramedic presence for the service of all search warrants. Well, that's good because, it sounds like they're already planning to do great damage and great bodily harm when they get there. So we don't want to have to wait for paramedics to respond. And I don't know if they really have the resources, if the fire department is in agreement with this, because we need to ask them, can we have 2 or 3 of your paramedics standing by over here with us while we shoot into this residence, not knowing who's on the other side of the door? We might hit somebody and we just need, a RA unit or 2 to stand by. Fire department, are you okay with that? That's another promise that came with that $12 million civil settlement. And then lastly, elimination of policy that closes investigations into officer conduct when there's a retirement or a resignation. And so basically what that means is, on the LAPD, as far as I understand it, if I were to get in trouble, let's say, and I've got 20 years on the job and they're coming after me, Internal Affairs is doing an investigation, they're about to send me to a board of rights, and I go code 3 down to the retirement counselor so that I can pull the pin before they go through the process of termination, termination. Well, on the LAPD, you can pull the pin, but LAPD continues to investigate you. Maybe other departments don't do that. And so this promise is now that if you pull the pin before they can get you, they will continue their investigation. And so it will be a record either that you were found guilty of misconduct or that you were exonerated, whether you're on the job or not. That's a good thing. I'm not opposed to it. But the problem that I really have with all of this, family, all of what I just read to you is a promise to do, and it must be ultimately agreed upon by their city council. Okay. But what's most important, hey, Boxwith, what's most important about this $12 million civil settlement that Ben Crump negotiated is that the city, the police department admits no wrongdoing. So what the police department said is, hey, listen, family of Breonna Taylor, we're going to give you $12 million because we don't want this thing to go to trial. If this thing goes to a jury, they may give you 3 times that, or they may not. And so rather than have the family run the risk of a jury either tripling 12 million or giving them nothing, and maybe, you know, the attorneys representing the family said, get that money, girl, get that money, because, you know, my work here will be done, and then I'm off to the next deadly police shooting. And, you know, if you've worked all your life and you had some rough patches along the way, 12 million, even if you don't get all of it, 6, 7, 8 million, there's nothing to sneeze at. So we'll give you the 12 million, but we are not admitting any wrongdoing. And we know that the officer hasn't been charged. We know that for a fact. And there's only one officer that's even been fired. And I think everybody that was on scene should have been dealt with. But one officer has been fired, as far as I know, and that officer has not been charged. So I don't know. I'm not an attorney. Maybe if there's an attorney on here, you can just let me know. If I'm a defense attorney and I'm representing the police officer and we're in court, I'm going to want the jury to know that, I mean, yeah, sadly, this woman lost her life in the service of a no-knock warrant, but the department didn't do anything wrong. And the family acknowledged that the department didn't do anything wrong when they took that $12 million check. The family is in agreement that this officer did nothing wrong. So why is my officer even standing trial? Why are we here on criminal charges when the department said they did nothing wrong and the family agreed they did nothing wrong? I'd like a civil rights attorney to help me understand how that's helpful. I mean, I know, how it's helpful to you, but how is that helpful to the family? And how is that helpful to the greater cause of, justice that you guys pejoratively pretend to want? Because I guess maybe if there are no civil cases to pursue, there are no civil settlements, then some of these civil rights attorneys might have to hang their shingle out somewhere and sit down in a courtroom with some briefs and motions and stuff. I guess if you get that justice that you say you want, the sweeping reform across all 18,000 police departments, the blueprint that's going to change everything, that's going to make sure there is never another Breonna Taylor. Those things I just read off to you are going to ensure that there's never another Breonna Taylor. So they say. If justice is what you want, if fixing this is what you want, at some point you're going to run out of victims. At some point you're going to run out of stuff to do. At some point you're going to not have anyone whose case you can settle and get stuff that means nothing to me when I'm driving around in my car every day for 8 hours and 45 minutes. It's not going to stop me from doing the shit that I do. Trust me when I tell you. It's not going to stop Derek Chauvin. It's not going to stop Garrett Rolfe. It's not going to stop Brian Encinia, who was the officer that pulled Sandra Bland over. It's not going to stop Ray Tenzing, the officer that pulled Sam DuBose over. I mean, I could go on and on. It's not going to stop them. And let me ask you this, family. When was the last time? Because, I listened to the mom, and I get that she probably doesn't like being propped up in front of the cameras to be on display in her grief. But she said, oh, so now, this is over. And, I guess we, move on to the next phase, which is the criminal. But, again, when we get that criminal trial, I'm going to say that the officers did nothing wrong. And ma'am, you admitted that, right? Did you not? But nonetheless, that's kind of what she said. And so I don't know if in her mind, she's just ready for this to be over. I don't know if that's what Ben Crump told her to say. I don't know if she was reading a teleprompter, but it felt to me like she was kind of resigned that I got the money, this is it, and nothing is going to change. And anybody else on the Louisville Police Department that wants to shoot in your house at 1 o'clock in the morning can do it. And they'll use taxpayer money, and they'll give it to you or your family. You won't be here, but we sure appreciate that sacrifice you made. And they'll change nothing. They'll change nothing. So I think we probably won't see the mom anymore, my guess. I, keep a list in my phone of folks who have settled with police departments and received a nice little chunk of change. And again, I don't fault these families for that. I think they're owed that at the very least. But I was talking to somebody last night, and one of the things that I was asking the person that I was on the phone with was, when was the last time you heard anybody or you saw anybody who has received a chunk of change, buckets of money, who hit that police department lottery? When was the last time that you saw any one of them on TV? You haven't. And the reason that you haven't is because generally when there's a civil settlement, there's a stipulation, there's an agreement, an NDA. We don't talk about it anymore. And I know this to be true because I sued LAPD twice. And when I sued LAPD and I got a little change, they told me, you can't talk about it. Now I can talk about the fact that I sued, but I can't talk about the particulars. So you never really get to know what happened and why they actually gave me that chunk of change. And so, I was just thinking about the people who have received, the families of folks who have received buckets of money. Sam DuBose, his family received 4.8 million. Sandra Bland's family received 1.9 million. Freddie Gray's family, 6.4. There was a young woman by the name of Ayanna Stanley Jones, whose family received $8 million. The couple that was killed in the car chase where Michael Brelow over in Cleveland PD jumped on the roof and fired about 45 rounds through the windshield because they frightened him. That couple received $3 million. Have you seen any of them folks talking? Did you see them at any of these recent marches? Have you seen Ben Crump propping them up? I know he didn't represent all of those families, but have you seen any of those folks talking about what happened? You haven't. And I would imagine that after yesterday, we probably won't see the mother of Breonna Taylor talking anymore either. And that's the thing that kind of rubs me raw about, and I'm not an attorney, so, don't judge me, but it would be nice if these attorneys would ask for real policy change, if they would ask for that accountability that I talk about, because it seems like when it comes to police reform, accountability, you would think is a damn 4-letter word. Nobody wants to use it. They want to do everything, but they want to defund. They want to hire social workers. They want to, cut back on police officers' overtime because they defunded the police, or they moved money around and reallocated it. Now there's no money for what I heard here in LA on the LAPD, no money to really promote recruitment in the communities where they can find folks like me, or in HBCUs where folks like me might be studying juvenile justice, criminal law, and would be a great applicant. They don't have the money now because Mayor Garcetti took 150 million or whatever he took and reallocated it to where, I don't know, officers on the LAPD can't work overtime. Okay, that works for me because I don't want to work it anyway. But all of these things ultimately really do this so-called defunding, moving money around, pretending like, somehow it's going to stop me when I get in my car tomorrow for 8 hours and 45 minutes. I don't care. I don't care. It changes nothing. And so, that's the thing that rubs me raw, because they feign and pretend like they want real change, yet nobody is doing anything to bring about that real change. Because real change, James, you said John Crawford's family got 1.7. Let me check my records, because I was looking at that family as well, and I don't remember if it was John Crawford. Check your records, because I got 6 million for John Crawford, sir. But nonetheless, they don't want real reform, because as a police officer, what would affect me, what would get my attention as a patrol officer, what would make me think twice, what would give me pause, would be if I was going to be affected personally. Qualified immunity is that thing that prevents all police officers from being dealt with, from being held accountable. And that's the thing you guys should be jumping up and down and demanding. Qualified immunity. Qualified immunity is a legal principle that grants government officials performing discretionary functions immunity from civil suits, unless the plaintiff shows that the official violated clearly established statutory or constitutional rights of which a reasonable person would have known. That's what qualified immunity is. We need to do away with qualified immunity, because I think if officers understood that, we wouldn't have seen those officers tackle Roderick Walker because he was a passenger in a goddamn Uber and didn't want to show his ID because he's not driving. And he just said, "Why are you asking me for my ID?" If I knew that that was a possibility as a patrol officer, I promise you, I would think twice. I remember years ago, I used to work with this guy in Pacific Division, and he was funny. He was an Asian dude, and his first name was Alan, and we just kind of called him cool ass Alan. You'd have thought, and maybe he did grow up in a black neighborhood, because he was. If you heard him and you wasn't looking at him, you'd think he was a brother. But Alan had stubbed his toe, and he had got in a little bit of trouble. And so, he had decided, and I was working with him one day, and I wonder why he drives so damn slow. He never went beyond 15. If he got real excited, he would drive 20 miles an hour, but usually it was 15 miles an hour everywhere we went that night. And it was so stupid. I really did like, at one point, I was like, please don't put me with him. Please don't put me with him. But I was like, dude, what's up? And he said, he had gotten in trouble, and it wasn't like it cost him any money. He had just been disciplined. I don't know if he got a notice to correct, which is a paper penalty for us, or if he took a day or two without pay. But it had something to do with him driving too fast. A supervisor, a sergeant, saw him driving too fast, going unauthorized, code 3. My law enforcement family understands what that means, right? And so he said, they let me know, the department let him know that they didn't want him to drive too fast. So he said, I don't drive fast. I don't drive fast. So, this is what they want me to do. This is as fast as they want me to go. And so all night, wherever we went, if we got a radio call, he just would not drive beyond 15 miles an hour. And so I say that to say, as stupid as it is, and not as nonsensical as it is, they got his attention. They suspended him for a couple of days off, gave him the paper penalty, whatever it was. They got his attention. And he said, I promise you, I won't go unauthorized code 3. You won't catch me rolling code 2.5 because an officer put out a backup call, and I shouldn't have been going code 3, but an officer put out a backup call. And so I was trying to get there to help appear. And now you messing with me? You gonna suspend me? And so he said, okay, fuck it. I won't go over 15 miles an hour. I promise you. If officers knew that there was a consequence that commensurate with the misconduct that they commit, and it's a big deal when you take a life. If officers knew that there was a consequence commensurate with the ass whipping that they about to give you, I think officers would think twice, knowing my peers. I think if Derek Chauvin knew that there was going to be a grave consequence for him boldly, brazenly sitting back on his knees on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, watching everybody who was watching him and photographing him and just like, do your thing, photograph me, record me. He didn't have nothing to say for 8 minutes and 46 seconds as he slowly, mercilessly murdered that man and didn't give a damn who was watching because he had 18 other personnel complaints and this was just going to be one more. If he knew that there was going to be a consequence, if he really knew that his ass would be sitting where it is right now, I think he would have done something different. But that's just me. There's no guarantee. But how about if we just try it? Can we just maybe try it and see what happens? That's my angst with the $12 million settlement, not the money, the failure to get real accountability, the pretense that this is somehow going to be the blueprint for all of the 18,000 police departments across the nation, that this is the model by which everybody will work from going forward, is a lie. I don't know if it's an intellectual lie or if it was just something that was thought and put out there mistakenly because it was put out by an attorney who's not a cop, who hasn't spent a moment in a patrol car or a uniform and didn't really know that promise that they made as they wrote that big ass check meant nothing. Just like the promises that a lot of these politicians are making with regards to police reform. We'll reallocate money, we'll defund, we'll cut out overtime. That's what you want. But it's not going to stop me when I go to work tomorrow and I get in that car with my partner who's a jackass too, from hurting somebody because they didn't do what I said, because they didn't come here, because they didn't turn around, because they asked one too many questions. That's not going to stop me from doing that thing that I do. And police administrators know that. And we know they know that because many of them are complicit, because many of them, all of them were once street cops. All of them have probably engaged in or witnessed, been a participant, observer of, just like the police chief in Rochester. He did his damnedest to keep the story about Daniel Prude. And that's why when the mayor found out, she was pissed the fuck off and fired him. That's why Lori Lightfoot over in Chicago got rid of the superintendent, because he was out, Louis lampshading, which is what I like to call people, when you're doing stupid stuff. Flintstone character, Louis Lampshade. He's out with his side piece in a damn city vehicle. Now, he didn't hurt nobody but himself. Drunk, got caught, lied about it. So the fish rots from the head. I said this the other day. The head being the head of a police department, and ultimately the head being the wackadoodle in the White House, because he's encouraging a lot of this craziness that goes on. You've got Fraternal Order of Police associations who support him because he supports their bullshit. You have folks, unsuspecting public, you guys not really knowing what you need to ask for. And so that's why I come to you week after week to tell you what to ask for, to tell you what to demand. And I think, so I'm going to be a little harsh and say that some of you are lazy, and that some of you, don't want to pull up your sleeves and do the things that you need to do to get this stuff done. You like to complain and bellyache here with me, once a week or on your own social media platforms, but you're not willing to go to a town hall meeting or get with some grassroots organizations in your town and call a meeting and call the damn police chief in, call the prosecutor in, and ask them about these issues that are quality of life issues for you. So We know that police chiefs know better. We know that sheriffs are part of it. And that's going to lead me right into my next story very briefly as I get ready to get out of here. Um, LA County Sheriff's deputies shot over the weekend. And it's been reported that I don't know this to be true, but there's certainly pictures of the female deputy that are circulating on social media. And she is said to have been one of the ones that was at the shooting of fatal shooting of a young Hispanic kid. He's only, I think, 18 or 19, Andres Guardado, if my Spanish pronunciation is right, in June, shot in the back. And this female officer was purported to have been there and kind of laughing and yucking it up like cops can do, like we've seen them do at protests when they hurt people, or we've seen them do it after they put hands on you and they celebrate. We've heard them on their body cams talking about, what just happened and how they feel about it. And so, some folks, and I don't condone it, I don't agree with it. I think it was disrespectful. I don't celebrate injury or harm to anyone. I don't celebrate abuse by the police, and certainly don't celebrate it against the police. But there were some who were out there, doing the dance of 1,000 nights at the scene when the officers were shot. And then others who I think probably had nothing to do with that community were out there waving some kind of flag around and, shouting things that were inappropriate outside of the hospital. And I know that there's some of you here who are not sympathetic to those deputies because it's rumored, kind of not rumored, documented, that there is a gang within the Compton Sheriff's Department called the Executioners. And this gang within the Compton Sheriff's Station is reportedly, according to a whistleblower, engaged in that kind of celebratory foolishness, if you will, when they hurt people in that community, when they kill someone, when they beat someone up. And part of how they celebrate it is they go out and they get a tat. And it's reported that this tattoo is either on the ankle or on the leg, just like a gangster. And there's more than just that one organization, subculture in the sheriff's department. Many substations have gangs of deputies. And, Alex Villanueva, I think somebody need to pull his ass to the side and pull his pants leg up or down, pull his pants down, and let's take a look at his ankle and see what's on there, because he says he has no appetite. He's not going to be holding no inquisition to find out who the gangsters are in his department. So that lets you know that he has no intention of doing anything. He's not going to rein them in, and it's a problem. Within the sheriff's department, there are several other gangs. They have something called the Banditos. I think they're over in East LA. They replaced the Red Devils that used to be over in East LA. And this gang situation with the county has been going on since the 70s, it's reported. The Red Devils were the gang that I think first started over in East LA, and they called the East LA station Fort Apache. So you had all of that going on. And out at Antelope Valley, there's a lot of stuff going on out there too. You got a gang called the Rattlesnakes. You got the 2,000 boys and the 3,000 boys. I think those might be the deputies that might work Men's Central Jail, and maybe 2,000 and 3,000 is the area, the floor, the ward that they handle. You got the Jump Out Boys, the Cowboys, the Reapers, Regulators, and then the Vikings. Now, the Vikings are supposed to be in Linwood, and Under Sheriff Paul Tanaka, who I believe is currently serving time with the sheriff, the previous sheriff, Lee Baca. Paul Tanaka was an alleged Linwood Viking. So it's not like Alex Villanueva don't know that these gangs exist within his department. He knows it, and he seems to be okay with it because he's done nothing to get rid of them. This would be a very easy fix. All he got to do is start hitting every station and start doing a ad inspection, pull up your pants leg. I need to know who's who in the zoo. But he doesn't have to do that really, because he grew up on that department, and I'm certain that he already knows who's who in the zoo. I'm sure there's already a list. There's some red flags, but Alex Villanueva is part of the problem. And so there's that. So I just wanted to kind of catch up and tell you my thoughts about, this whole thing with the deputies. Many of you by now have probably already seen the videos from my appearances on CNN I was on Fox with Fox Network with Dr. Drew. He has a show on Fox Network. And then I also went on Trump TV, which is called Newsmax. And I did an interview there. And it was very interesting because the interview that I did on Newsmax was with a reporter, anchor. She didn't know me, clearly. I've been on there many times before. It's been a few years, but I think they brought me on purposely because I'm a Black woman. I'm a police officer. And they showed 2 video clips of the Black folks celebrating these officers being injured. And they showed it to me and wanted to know, oh my God, what do you think? You know, when you see that as a member of the LAPD family. And so if you want to know what I thought, you can go to my YouTube channel, Sgt Dorsey Speaks, and you can see all 3 of those videos regarding my commentary on the deputy ambush. And then there's one more thing that's breaking news with LA County deputy, and that was a Black man who was shot and killed a few days ago. His name is Sgt Dorsey. He was riding a bicycle and had committed some kind of a vehicle code violation. My guess is, the man didn't have a hat on or a helmet, because you know y'all don't wear helmets when you ride your bicycles. But nonetheless, he was on his bicycle and did a traffic stop, and he jumped off the bicycle. And now I guess there's some video that's been released, and Alex Villanueva, the sheriff, had a press conference because he was, you know, he wanted you to know about this, that Dijon had a gun, and he dropped it when he got off the bike and ran, and he picked it up. And so that's that. There's not going to be probably much more said with regards to that shooting being not justified. If you have a gun, you carry a gun, you run from the police with a gun, chances are that will end badly. And so that's the most recent with regards to the shooting of Sgt Dorsey down in executioner territory. And there has not been any word that I've heard as of this reporting with regards to the person who did the shooting of the officers, the deputies, over the weekend. As far as I know, that person is still being looked for. My guess is when they find him, we'll never know what that was all about. My guess. I don't know. I'm just thinking that the executioners, when they find that shooter, they will do what they do. And so that'll be that. So I just wanted to come to you, and haven't been able to keep up with the comments because I've been yammering on. But but that's what's going on. That's my thought. Hey, Ronald, thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Deverly, Aaliyah, I hope I'm saying that right. Thank you for stopping by and commenting. Nikki, appreciate you. Carla, Jamie, William Taylor, appreciate you. DB, what's up? DB, are we gonna do vegan tonight, dude? I'm gonna make a phone call as soon as I'm done. You know what's up, right? Okay, so I needed to be done at 6. It's 6. I'm done. It's a wrap. If there's something else going on that I need to come back and update you on with regards to when they find the suspect and execute them, I'll come back and I'll let you know about that. If there's something else that is urgent and pressing, I'll come to you and I'll tell you what's going on and tell you what I think about it. But I just really, really wanted to dig into that whole sweeping reform notion that's out there about the Louisville, Kentucky Police Department, because some of you may live in Louisville or you may have family in Louisville, and I don't want you guys to get lulled into a false sense of security and think that these promises that the city council must agree to later are really going to keep you safe. And what I really want to do is make sure that you're safe. So until next time, family, be good, be safe.